Welcome to the Esports Performance Summit. My name is Brian Bain, and our guest today is Dr. Denyse Ray, clinical psychologist. Dr. Denyse, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Brian.
Well, the honor's ours, and I know that you've been very involved in the mental health and wellness space for many years in many different sectors, and you're now or have been involved with esports as well, and kind of integrating your psychology background, mental health background with esports. I would love to hear more about kind of your journey and how those came together and how you got involved with esports specifically.
Well, this started quite a few years ago. The whole concept of wellness and mental health being a part of my assignment in life. I had a friend who was very prominent in her church. She was had gotten through the glass ceiling with a corporate mentor, but she committed suicide and she left three very small words in her suicide note, and those were "Nobody heard me."
Hmm.
And so at that point, I accepted the assignment to hear pain through its silence, to hear better when people were in trouble and not able to articulate that pain. So that's how this journey got started for me. And so I went on to get a dual PhD in clinical and forensic psychology. And my specialty is I'm board certified expert in traumatic stress. I actually believe that all of our pain is a derivative of something core, and we continue to treat symptom. And my role is to find cause of pain and get to cure.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love the idea of getting to root causes as opposed to treating
Right?
symptoms, because otherwise,
Exactly.
yeah, it's just that situation when you're treating something, and it's like you're doing what you're told to do, but you don't feel like something's not happening, and then you have that, for lack of a better phrase, I call that aha moment of like, oh,
Mhm.
maybe it's this, and you're able to
Right?
go down and discover what that may be. So I'm excited to hear about more about how you're doing that and your different spheres of influence. So with that background, the dual PhDs, the board certified expert in traumatic stress, how did you come across esports? How did you get into this space? I'm
Well,
curious.
I actually started in the sports arena, and people were asking me, "Are you going to get a PhD or a doctorate in sports psychology?" And once I got into the school, to the educational part of my training, I learned that there was no separation of sports psychology versus this psychology. Uh, for that psychology. So the people were actually giving us a wrong information with separating the
Hmm.
dynamics of pain and the dynamics of depression and categorizing it based on what the person did as opposed to going to the core of the problem and finding out the cause of the pain and then subsequently eliminating that pain, which is what makes me a specialty in my area because I don't go to symptoms to masking what the traditional psychology profile does, which is to ask questions about the symptoms that the individual is having and subsequently again mask the pain, and it just continues to get buried down below the surface of the human being, and they rarely, if ever, reach any degree of breakthrough. So
Hmm.
I literally recoil when I hear clients and or practitioners say things like they've had people in treatment for years and there has been absolutely no resolution to the reason that they came to them in the first place. So
Hmm.
I've got a real problem with cookie cutter model. And I can tell you that in our practice, in our arena, we only develop individualized protocols for people because I have one of my flagship presentations is the miracle of you. And so I will start with by saying this to you, Brian, that each of us could stand side by side and marvel at the placement of the stars in the sky, but neither of us will ever have the same fingerprints or the same DNA.
Hmm.
So the cookie cutter model does not work. And that's why we continue to have this cycle of stuff not being fixed.
That's fascinating. I think I'm really curious how much you can dig into. You mentioned the cookie cutter models and how applying one or a few blanket approaches it can't help everyone, obviously, because we all have unique pains and problems. And you said you only develop individualized protocols.
Yes.
Could you go more in depth on what you mean by that and how that's different from maybe how I'll say maybe a mainstream psychologist may approach things, for lack of a better way of saying that?
Well, I've begun over the years to study technology as it relates to finding cause, and I use what we call scalar energy. I only research at the cellular level of the individual, and we use biofeedback resonance to gather the data, and the biofeedback goes to the individual through headphones, and it reads the algorithm based on the data that we put into the device. And so we get both the physical and the emotional things that are going awry with the individual. So we're able to read, again, at a cellular level. We find injuries that occurred maybe in the second grade, and you actually forgot about that. And we also are able to find out where the individual is landing, where the pain is landing, even the emotional pain. Sometimes we carry it in different parts of our body, and normally practitioners don't talk about that. They just talk about the cognitive components there, but we also are carrying that pain physically in places where we haven't identified it. And so that's what, again, sets us apart from our traditional practitioners' approach to emotional pain.
So would that be? I'm trying to get an image for how this works. So I guess if someone's coming in to meet with you, a client comes in and
We do an assessment
right.
first. Yes.
So maybe I guess you have them um, have some nodes attached to them during their session, maybe. So as you're going
Well,
through,
it's a headphone. It's a headphone again, and it's reading. Like I said, it's reading through the algorithm that's been developed for an individual who is that same blood type and or same age and or same gender. And so it reads out. It gives us a printout of the information, and then we do the research on our finding.
interesting.
So you don't. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm not familiar with this approach.
Understandable,
So I was
yes,
going to ask a lot of questions to
understandable.
get a feel
Yeah.
for it.
Well, I'm going to want you to schedule an appointment at some point.
So if I came in, like as
Yes.
far as how you guys get those readings to begin with, again, is it like kind of at a like a physician's office? You put maybe some nodes that kind of read, or you take a
No,
blood
no,
test, or
no, no, none of that.
okay,
What we do is, again, we put your data, your personal information into our device,
okay,
and we put the headphones on you, and then the program starts to read from head to toe every part of your body without being invasive, with
interesting.
no X-ray, none of that. And it reads again through the algorithm, and it gives us the information that we are seeking from the individual, not from a collective.
So I come in, I put on these headphones, and
Yeah.
so they and it says reading that information or data from my body. Like
Yes.
what is where is that data being
Well,
collected through?
that's science. That's science that the developer created, and so the original device was made in Russia, and it was made to offset truth serum. So it's designed. The resonance is designed to read all of the energy in your body. And so again, they have done a fantastic. They didn't make it initially for the good. But right now, some of us practitioners over the years, the last decade, I would say, are using this device for the good of humankind to be able to read, again, at the cellular level, the energy that's going on in your everything from the top of your head to your toenails. So it's fantastic and it is cutting edge. The
Well,
fact that it's non-invasive is very cutting
right,
edge.
right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's what I was curious about, like how that dynamic works as far as how it's collecting that information. I guess, does it come in through the headphones somehow, or
Yes.
maybe there's?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so the headphones are actually receiving data.
The headphones are receiving the
Oh,
data, and yes,
so they're not listening to something through headphones. It's just collecting the information.
yes, it's collecting the information because
Oh,
if
okay.
you understand in your ear, every organ is in your ear, and most acupuncturists use the ear to look at everything from, like I said, your cranial through your toenails, through the ear through reading, and so. Again, different than your go in and chat for an hour, 50 minutes, and try to come up with some conclusion about how to help the individual.
Well, I mean, there is a dynamic that I'm not, I mean, that I'm familiar with in terms of the fact that, different people can feel different emotions physically.
Mm-hmm.
And like, for example, some people, and I may not think of a great example, but some people may think, hey, if they have a lot of, an obvious one would be you're feeling really stressed, so you have tension in your shoulders. That's something that is probably not terribly uncommon. Or some people may feel fear and they feel something actually in their stomach when they're
Mm-hmm.
afraid. And
Exactly.
so that concept is not unfamiliar to me in that sense. And it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like what you guys are doing basically is through this methodology that you have are able to kind of read that on a deeper level and maybe even
Yes.
help identify how specific traumas have been recorded physically in your body somehow or another. Is that
Ye- Yeah, that's very close. And so what we have now is the ability to say, Brian, I see that you're carrying this stress in your right shoulder, or you're carrying it in, let's just get very basic here, you're carrying it in your left buttock even. And
mm-hmm.
so now we need to begin to do first a detox of what you've been given and what you've been treating, how you've been treating in the past. Give yourselves the freedom to detox yourself from whatever the toxins are and whatever is causing you the stress. And it's a process. So that's why we have to build a protocol based specifically on your needs and what you require to come out of these sessions with.
So when you do that initial session, I've got the headphones on, it's kind of
Yes.
receiving data. And I guess
Yes.
you get some that gives you the psychologist some data. And I mean, is it going to say like, hey, Brian's carrying a lot of stress in his left shoulder, or like I'm curious,
Well,
what are examples of?
the graph will show us at some point that because it ebbs and flows, it will show us that when we got to, let's say, your gallbladder, that there was something physical on there that you may have gallstones, or you may be in the inflammatory area where you are getting gallstones. So we also know that you're not only the gallstones are there, but you're also carrying that stress of not only the gallstones being there, but you're also carrying the stress of work or a home issue. And so we have somewhere to go to cause now.
Okay.
We have a place to start to question, as opposed to just going by, again, the cognizance of the individual that, well, I've been having problems sleeping. All of those things there is a derivative
Hmm.
of those things. And that's what we have to find in order to get you off of our system and back to some optimal health. That's the goal.
And I guess maybe the process gives some feedback that there's some kind of tension or something going on, like you mentioned the gallbladder, and is, I guess it's safe to say then that maybe usually when that's the case with someone, if there's maybe some common root causes behind issues in someone's gallbladder, for example, or is even that not even, I mean, is that kind of how that helps you? Then
We
you kind of know where to start.
No, we all carry it differently. That's
Okay.
why, again, that's why
Interesting.
we still need to stop putting everything in a cookie cutter model and making a collective. When people even come to me and they say, "Well, I'm taking these supplements and I'm taking that supplement," my question is always, where's your deficiency?
Hmm.
And why are you taking a multivitamin? Because who actually narrowed down where your deficiencies are, and no two of us again have the same deficiency. So I never suggest that you walk into a drugstore and buy something off of the shelf that's made for everyone.
Right.
Your headache is different than his headache. The way you process stress is different than the way someone else processes stress. Even though the pain may look alike, it is not. Even culturally, we process differently. And so a job depends on how we process as well, whether or not we are an executive versus an athlete. And so we use different components in our body, which is why we cannot and we will not do a collective on your group and say this is what the problem is with the group. We must do. Go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead. You please go ahead.
We must do an individual assessment and then see where the collective similarities are and how they are processing. And that way we can do more than one protocol for more than one person. Otherwise, it has to remain very individual.
Right, right. And I guess once you get that data back, then you're able to figure out, okay, what's the best course of action, at least to begin with for each person.
Yes.
And I guess that involves what maybe some of us may think of as kind of typical therapy that involves, you know, discussions and digging into past and trying to find hurts there. Or are there
Mm-hmm.
what are, I'm curious what the type of what are the array of techniques that are used then on the treatment side? I'm curious.
On the treatment side, we use food and plant-based, mostly everything. Again, you will never find me prescribing anything that comes out of the petro medicine model,
Hmm.
simply because it's all very toxic and it's all synthetic. The body has been developed to be able to cure itself with a little bit of aid from mother or father nature, whoever you are,
Right.
I'm just saying. So I like to do my very best effort in helping people to begin to do several things. One is to worship the temple that they have been assigned. And secondly, to do a much better job of not relying on mass and quick fixes. Athletes that we work with now are accustomed to using our model of scalar energy for healing as opposed to um, opioids for pain. And
You said
so
scalar is SC.
scalar, SCALAR, scalar energy. And so we use those devices, we put it right on the pain. We give you again a protocol based on that, how many times a day and or how many times a week that you should put that type of treatment wherever the challenge is. So again, and then like I said, it has to do with food. It has to do with your diet. It has to do with lifestyle. It has to do with what you've been taught early on, which is why sometimes that detoxing must occur as well. The detoxing of the thought process. And when we're working with individuals like athletes who rely on a specific skill, mostly physical, to get their assignment, get their job done, we have to be very mindful of not putting more toxicity into their system, which causes them to not be able to compete appropriately. So all of those things, go ahead.
No. Sorry. Go ahead. I don't want to.
All of those things have to be in the equation and in the consideration. And here is the final piece. We must ask for permission to even move forward with the individual. So we don't just say, you need this. We found that. We always make suggestions about what our findings are. And we never say, I have this. We teach them not to claim anything. We just say that you're having a challenge with this and our challenge with that, and I'm working on it. Because for us, the universe is receiving your data every day, all day, constantly. And it's responding to that data every day, all day, constantly. So if you're feeding it negative connotations, negative thought processes, that's what you're going to receive. And we help you navigate through those processes as well.
So you've got a background as a psychologist in professional sports, I believe, NBA, NFL, and different things like that.
Yes.
So I'm curious. How did you get into? Okay, you said earlier you got into sports because people asked you to get people asked in the sports arena were asking for your help. That's how you initially got involved with the sports, right? Okay.
Initially. Yes, with the Tampa Bay Bucks, and so that's going back pretty darn far. Yeah. So that's where I cut my teeth in sports medicine, kind of. If you need to add that to the equation, I was working for the Tampa Bay Bucks, and this is, like I said, a long time ago during the Doug Williams era. And and so Coach Lyons, I believe he was a defensive coach. Don't hold me to the position. But at any rate, he and I started to talk, and we talked about how what the people see on the field, that individual that they see, has nothing to do with the man who is the player.
Okay.
Because they're suffering, they're going through a lot of things, and when the jobs are in question, that whole challenge of emotions is just there. They're always thinking in terms of losing their job, so the anxiety is accelerated, and depending on, again, the job. And many now we've evolved to a place in society where every daggone job is very high stress.
Right.
And so I actually came through this journey at a time where it was specialized in particular areas. And so, but now your job is stressful. Everybody's job is stressful because they require so much from the human resources.
Right.
And I don't believe that people are allowing the resources to function adequately. We keep insisting that we mask that with something to help to accelerate what we draw from the people. Wrong answer.
So basically, a big issue there, what I'm hearing you say is there's not really many jobs or roles out there that are not being overly demanding of people, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Basically.
And people aren't equipped to know how to meet those demands.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. That's
expectations of individuals, right?
Right. Well, and especially like you mentioned on professional sports, professional athletes. So you worked for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You said that was a long time ago.
There. Yeah. I started there, but the whole journey has been throughout the NFL and the NBA up to this point. And how you guys got into my energy was I had a young person ask me about a friend who had suicidal ideology, and they were a gamer. And so from there I started to look at the discipline. And I thought, wow, these young, mostly men, mostly males, are headed for an epidemic. if somebody doesn't get in there and assist them in understanding how to navigate these emotions. So when you're talking about young males, they don't gain their emotional side or their logical side of thinking until they're in like 25, 26 years old. So now you're talking to 15, 16, 17-year olds who are competing at a very stressful rate, and they have no idea what to do with all of that emotion because they're not in their rational thinking yet. It's a
Right.
growth process. It's a maturity process. And so I'm finding that more and more of them are suffering with that ideology because they are ill prepared to compete on these levels. They're ill prepared for the confinement. They're losing track of interpersonal skills because they're housed together and nobody seems to be going in there on this mental health specifically. Let's take that off the table. I'm raising both hands here.
Right. Right. So you're describing that basically the situation for a lot of gamers,
Yes.
in a number of scenarios, there are just like different warning signs as far as
Yes.
concerns and lack of health with or mental health and mental and emotional health. And a big piece of that you're saying is that, or that I'm understanding you say, is that, I mean, it's just common information that males and females don't fully develop, brains don't fully develop until into their 20s, and you said males in their mid-20s. And so literally you have young gamers in their teenage years, and this would also obviously be true for many traditional sports, but specifically with esports, they're facing all these challenges emotionally and stress-wise that their literally brain is not finished developing enough to really give them the capacity to be able to make those decisions and handle those things well.
Exactly. And so I'm stepping in there saying, let me hug them. Yeah, let me hug them and
Right.
let me get them better prepared for the journey past this. Let me get them better prepared for, I don't want to use the word failure, but better prepared for challenges so that they don't lose sight of their individuality, which has not been fully developed. So they don't lose sight of their confidence in case of a loss. So they don't lose sight of direction simply because what happens in retirement, and I work with a lot of retired professional athletes, no one had prepared them for the end. What happens to them then? I want to do a better job of assisting with helping these young people because these guys are, and young women, most specifically guys, they're retiring somewhere around 20, 25 years old.
Right.
Really?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's another thing that we have to do a better job at looking at preparing them for that retirement. So most of my professional athletes that are in retirement they start out being very, very lost.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that.
Okay, right? They
Well,
start
your
out
identity has been fully wrapped up in that sport, and now it's
yes,
gone.
yes, and now it's gone. And so, who are you now? And a lot of them fail to come out of that phase healthy because they didn't go in healthy.
Right. So in this summit, so far in this talk, we've identified a lot of the needs and a lot of the challenges, some unique aspects to your approach to helping and serving the people you're working with. As people are watching this video, I'm curious if there are some, maybe we can address. Obviously, this is not going to be individualized, but it's going to be kind of maybe some high level general. Maybe tools and advice we can share with our audience watching and listening to this, as far as, like you just mentioned, some of the challenges, like being better prepared for the challenges in esports, whether that be being dealing with losses, different challenges, issues with confidence and identity, even retirement. Do you mind maybe going back through a few of those and maybe giving some encouragement and some kind of general advice that maybe some of our listeners can even start benefiting from today, maybe, or earlier?
I would have to be very honest and forthcoming as I always am, and say that the way to give the advice is not through this venue.
Okay.
Simply because we will be doing the same thing expecting a different result. So the whole pitch an idea or a possibility that could occur, it won't make very much difference. I need to be very honest with you, simply because we are talking to young people who have not processed how to process information like this. So that's not even connected for them yet. And so to be able to say to them, think about your retirement now before you go into the wrong answer, Brian. It
Right.
really is the wrong answer. And I don't want you guys and myself along with you to do the same thing and expect a different result. This would be the approach that we have taken in the past, and it has not been very helpful. I believe that we should think in terms of how we get ourselves in front of them aside from the summit, how we make that personal presentation to them so that they can, again, extract from the care of the practitioner, which is critical, because trust is an issue. Who are these people that are saying, I could do better at this than that if I take a different approach to it? If they haven't done any research on how athletes have actually fallen through their lives in the past, it won't really make a difference to just try and give them an example of something that we've been doing historically with all athletes, because they all think in the same vein when it comes to winning.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to be on a winning team, but what happens when the team has a rough season, or they don't make the playoffs, or these guys don't win at the game?
Right.
What happens then becomes a concern of mine. And again, I'm looking to assist to my capacity. The people such as yourself and your partner and Travis, who are coming out of the gate. This is your first summit, is that correct? You're coming out of the gate offering some assistances that have not been in place before. I like it.
Right.
Okay. I'm saying I like the idea that you're not so cookie cutter modeling, that you're now opening up this area of concern, and the people know that you are spearheading their total concern, not just their winning capacity.
Yeah. Right. So if I'm understanding correctly, I guess one of the reasons you feel like it would not be helpful to go into kind of more specifics in terms of addressing some of these concerns is because it sounds and feels nice to be able to talk about those things, but because of the challenges you've mentioned in terms of age and development of the dynamics, that it would not be a fruitful endeavor because people aren't ready to receive what you're sharing. Is that fair?
That's very fair.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very fair. And it's not fair to them. Right.
So I'm curious what your encouragement would be, because as many of them are watching this, of course in some cases you may have coaches and trainers watching this, or even maybe some cases parents, but primarily gamers. I'm curious what your encouragement to them would be at this point, as far as how they can move forward in a more healthy way. I'm just curious how you would encourage them as we, go toward wrapping up this interview. I would love to hear what your encouragement to them would be.
I would say be very mindful of what teams you allow your children to play with. Be mindful of the time that they are investing in practicing. Be mindful of the sponsors that are behind the game itself, simply because if you connect yourself to people who don't care as much as these individuals who are presenting this summit to you right now, you're going to end up in trouble.
So basically, you have an issue of if that, and because at that point you have an issue of misaligned values, and
Yes,
yeah,
yes. So I'm sincerely desirous of me being able to give you and your viewers a direction of safety as opposed to a direction of desperation in order to win, in order to earn. Should you do that, you will end up in a place where a lot of athletes, no matter what the sport is, end up in their mind, which is not fully capable of making good decisions for themselves. That
right,
would be my suggestion right now. Just
right. So it sounds like a lot of that is the challenge of you have, if you have, I mean, of course, obviously not everyone listening to this is going to be, below 25 and stuff. We got people who are older than that and across the board and everything. But for those who
right.
are, really acknowledging really the need of a parental figure in their lives to
Yes.
help protect them because they have that better judgment. So you really, at least in this specific case, you have that classic issue of, a parent saying, "Hey, I've been there. I know what's going on," and the kid saying, "I don't want to listen to you," and that tension going on. And so the importance of them having healthy influences in their lives and listening to them, I guess, is a
Exactly.
big takeaway.
Critical.
Yeah. So I guess
Also,
one
yes.
of the big takeaways from this, I guess, would be if you do fall in that demographic, being willing to listen to the wisdom of your elders in a lot of cases.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you are an elder, don't be so stuck on how you used to do things
Hmm.
and start to talk to these young people to really find out how you can best assist them. The thinking is different. I don't think in hashtags. And so I always have to talk to someone who does, though, in order to get my point across sometimes. So for the elders that are out there, please let us begin to clearly think about the care of these young people and the care of yourself. If you are a gamer, think about what you're putting yourself through and whether or not you are prepared emotionally for a challenge.
And so yeah. So it sounds like a lot of that too is people in sports, traditional or esports, get so caught up in the sport and in any of them, the whole goal is winning, and so everything gets revolved around this intensity of needing the win, wanting the win, pushing
Yes,
yourself further than you need to, taking on stressors that are beyond what you need to, that you're unable to
yes,
meet, and that
yes,
creates like this twisting and contorting of all kinds of mentally and emotionally and physically that is causing that. And really, I guess what I hear you saying is not everyone. I mean, most people don't win most of the time, and like you're thinking about that all the time. But the reality is, you're
hmm
living a different reality of where there are
exactly,
losses, there are challenges, and you're
exactly.
not in
There
any
is
way thinking about
pain.
how to deal with those.
Exactly, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
interesting,
And very, very much so.
nice. Well, Dr. Denyse, thank you for your desire to help people. Thank you for desire to help young people, gamers, and other athletes. And you just appreciate your heart to want to help people avoid these pains or navigate through them in a healthy way. And really appreciate you being a part of the summit as well.
And thank you for having me. I'm humbled and honored to be able to assist in any way that I can. I am truly in my life assignment helping people.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you, and thank you for being part of the summit. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon, hopefully.
All right, Brian, have a good one out there.